and welcome back to the Audible. I say welcome back because it died a horrible death a few years ago, and now we're bringing it back. Woo! Derek, it just feels right.
Yeah, baby.
It just feels right. And if you're not familiar with what the Audible was, you go back in the archives of Loud and Opinionated. We did the football episode. That's essentially what the Audible was. It was just Derek and I talking about the biggest headlines in college football, the NFL, stuff like that. We're not going to do...
We did all sports.
Yeah, basketball even. But we're not going to do what we usually did there. This is going to be a little bit more condensed, shorter, because we're going to record them right after we do another episode, and Derek apparently can't podcast too much at night. I don't know why. He's getting old.
Late, man. I get up early. I'm old now.
That being said,
we'd stay up till 4 a.m. drinking margaritas and made with cinnamon Jose Cuervo and played Rocket League. Can't do that anymore. So today we're gonna talk. We're gonna do. We got a good plan for the next 3 weeks. We're doing all Huskers today, and like some Big Ten stuff because we're Husker homers. We love our Skurs, and we got a game next week. We're pretty excited about Scott Frost coming back home. So next week we'll talk about college football, big picture since college football season kicks off next Thursday. And then the following week, before NFL really gets it in gear, we'll do an NFL show. So we're gonna split it up that way, and then from there, week to week, we'll do a good mix of the three. And we'll kind of play it by ear as we go. So all about the Huskers today. I'm super pumped, Jake. You want to know why?
Why is that? You
already know why. I got my season tickets today. My work gives us season tickets for free, and it's so great, and I'm so excited. It's not okay. It's not really free. We have to pay like the taxes on the ticket price. So it was $300 out of my next paycheck for 2 tickets. Really good seat. And if you're to actually buy them and with the donation and everything, it's like thousands of dollars. So it's awesome.
Yeah, they're not going cheap. That's for sure.
And for the first time, I'll be tailgating on my own with our friend Courtney and her boyfriend, our other friend Dave, and some family. It's going to be a great time. So I'm super pumped for this season. Are you pumped, Jake? How does it feel knowing that you're going to be like 150 miles away from Memorial Stadium?
I'll be fine. I mean, that's what TV's for, you know?
Yeah, but like you're going to be surrounded by like Iowa and Iowa State fans all the time. There's going to be no sea of red.
You know what's funny? It's when I do see a Husker fan here, because they're peppered around here in Des Moines. When I do see them, it's like they're out. I have to yell "Go Big Red" at them. When I was actually just walking around the state fair, I did whenever I saw, because I intentionally wore a Husker shirt and hat, and I'm like, I'm gonna find someone and we're gonna tell each other to go Big Red, and sure enough, I did. One guy had the best reaction. He just goes, "That's right." Doesn't say anything. Just goes, "That's right."
Go Big Red. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So while everything's peachy in Nebraska right now, coming off of the horrible 3 years with Mike Riley, we got Scott Frost, the savior, back after his national championship season at UCF. His undefeated national championship season. Anyways, first I want to get into what's going on around the Big Ten, and there's a lot of news coming out of the other side of the conference, the magnificent Big Ten East, which is just so full of power and so mighty. Just I was thinking about it. It feels like over the last 5 years, all the big programs over there, besides Michigan, really have just been riddled with scandal after scandal, from Penn State and their molesting of children over decades, and Michigan State and what they've been going through with the domestic and sexual abuse by some of the players. And then just in the last few weeks, we learned that Urban Meyer, possibly at least top 2 coaches in football, in college football, is covering up this and lying about this scandal where one of his assistant coaches was beating his wife, and he hired him after he already knew about that, and then he lied about it. I mean, And then yesterday we get this press conference, suspended for 3 games. I want to hear I don't know how like read into the situation you are. I'm pretty ready, and I just want to hear your overall thoughts on the punishment we got for Urban Meyer.
I mean, I'm not surprised by the degree of punishment that was dealt out because it's a Ohio State investigation, and Ohio State punished him the way that they wanted, obviously, and that was 3 games. And of those 3 games, only one team actually poses a legitimate threat, and that's TCU. Even so, as good as TCU is consistently, they're not Ohio State, and I think Ohio State.
There's a caveat too. He's not suspended from practice.
Yeah, that's another thing. He's like the first game, but September 2nd, he's reinstated with the team.
Yeah, so it's. I mean, I think it's for show more than anything, honestly, and I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
you can argue all day long whether or not it's worthy of him being fired. I definitely think if he wasn't so successful, he'd have been fired instantly for that. Like if Mike Riley in Nebraska last year, like say we had kept him on this year, and then over the offseason we found out all this stuff, they would have fired him in 2 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. And this whole situation, I actually did write an article for this for the site, but then the story kept changing. And my thing is you cannot tell him, if you go back further, you cannot tell me that this guy didn't know. And then he tries to give this bogus explanation that like if he would have known more, he didn't know enough. I'm like, you paid for the dude's counseling when you were coaching in Florida, and then you brought him with you to Ohio State. I think you can pretty much tell the judgment of this guy's character.
And I don't know how much you read into the report by like the investigators, it wasn't internally Ohio State, but it was council like put together by Ohio State, the Board of Regents, and some other people. But anyways, in the report, it says, I mean, it's just so bogus. When they were talking about him lying at Big Ten Media Days about having any knowledge of it, which like he clearly lied, and in other instances where they found him lying, they said that he conveniently had taken medicine that was known to cause memory loss. So he literally he didn't remember because he took his medicine that day. So he had very convenient amnesia. Are you kidding me? That's the most BS thing that you could possibly put in a report like that. And if you watch him at Big Ten Media Days, he's not like drugged up on medicine. He knows exactly what he's saying. He's lying to the people. If he would have just come out in the first place and said, hey, I made a mistake. I should have been better about my personnel. I need to set an example for the young men that I'm coaching. We're going to remove Zach Smith for the things that he's done. And if he would have just apologized, come clean, I think that they could have gotten away with not even suspending him. I think everybody would have forgotten about it in a couple of days. But the fact that he lied about it over and over again and all the stuff came out, man.
I'm sorry, you can't. And this
is disappointing. And I'm an Ohio State fan, secondary to Nebraska too, and I can't defend it. I'm very disappointed with Ohio State now.
You cannot use the Roseanne Barr excuse in this situation where I was under the influence of medication, so I don't know what happened. Like, you can't use that excuse. I'm sorry, that doesn't work. And honestly, like I said before, I'm not surprised by what Ohio State did, because it's something where it's like, okay, we have to do. You're right. If he would have got ahead of this, they probably would have got away with doing nothing. And I agree with you here, where we got to do something. So let's do the first 3 games, and then where you play Oregon State, who is a mop, if anything. You play Rutgers, who's a laughing stock and always will be, and TCU. The only legitimate thing is TCU, and they're 3rd or 4th place in the Big 12 at best.
Ohio State's going to spank them. Now, they're going to win all the games, especially the fact that he'll be at practice. This is basically like nothing. It's just, I don't know. It's really disappointing. And I think that people would have understood if he would have come out and just said the truth that that he had worked with this guy, that him and his wife had tried helping them, and maybe it didn't work out well, but that they believed that maybe they could help, but that looking back, this was a mistake. We don't condone this kind of behavior, and we certainly don't want to teach the young, impressionable student athletes that he's supposed to be a leader of. If you'd have just said that, problem solved like that, but no. So I'm disappointed. There's that, and then there's what's going on, or what happened at Maryland. Unfortunately, young man died on the football field, when slipped into a coma on the football field and died a few days later from being overworked during conditioning, and a lot going on with that. Still, we're waiting to hear the fate of DJ Durkin, the head coach, to see if his job there is done. I have a feeling that they're just going to have to, because it's one thing if the kid just has heat stroke and gets sick and maybe is injured for a little bit, but there's human life lost here, which is just so much bigger than anything has to do with football.
Could have been easily avoided. And yeah. I'm sorry, but I don't think that exists necessarily as much as it used to. But yes, there's that old Bear Bryant thing where nobody gets any water until this happens, or this, that kind of thing. But in this time, and the technology that these colleges have at these facilities, and how they could treat these student athletes, there's absolutely no excuse for that. And
the crazy thing is, when it happened, there were the trainers were there, there were medical staff there for the university, and I could be a little off on the time, but I think it took around an hour for the ambulance to show up, or for them to call an ambulance to come take him to the hospital. I mean, yeah, they definitely completely botched helping this kid out. And I know Durkin wasn't actually at the practice, but there's a lot of accusation that he promoted that kind of culture. And I will say, just to play the devil's advocate a little bit, having played football for 12 years as a kid, that there are always the kids on the team that are a little softer, shall we say, and don't do well in conditioning and complain and fall over when they're totally fine, and that's just them, crying wolf. So there's a little bit of that, but at the same time, like they had every opportunity to diagnose the situation and help this kid, and it's just a tragedy that this happened.
Right. Yeah, and if there's a history of this too, I mean, then this comes out that there's a history of them being abusive and being, and there's just no place for that. And I
think they got to fire him and just move on, even if Durkin himself really didn't have anything to do with it. Just to cleanse the situation, like what Penn State did, like maybe not every coach and person in that organization. Speaking of another huge scandal, like I said, they just said, we got to get rid of everybody. We got to restart. Like, this culture just needs to change. Like what happened with Baylor a couple of years ago.
And yeah, and I totally agree. And I think that I totally understand what you're saying, where there's just there's just players that are going to be soft, but encouraging them and toughening them up isn't the same as killing them.
Yeah, no, completely unacceptable.
It should not in a Power 5 school. That should never happen. I
agree. But hey, let's now that we've kind of gone over the scandals that are going on, I think we should talk a little the actual X's and O's of the football game that we like so much.
Of the pigskin.
It is kind of interesting with Maryland, because they've been kind of elevating over the last few years and showing a little bit of promise. I think that this is really going to put them back on the football field. Not really, and the Big Ten East, it is tough. Not really expecting a whole lot out of them. I would say let's. I don't know. Do you think so? Wisconsin came out in the AP poll above Ohio State. I don't know if you saw that. And I think that probably has something to do with this. All this scandal and stuff hadn't been resolved yet. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Wisconsin or Ohio State? Who do you think? Who do you think's the real king of the Big Ten this year?
Besides
Nebraska is going to win the national championship, of course.
I think that they flipped them on the AP, I think, because obviously of the scandal. I still think that this doesn't change anything, especially because it's only the first 3 games for Ohio State. I think Wisconsin is a legitimate contender. I do think they are a team that can legitimately challenge Ohio State for the crown, but I just don't see it happening. I think no matter even with all the distractions, Ohio State is still going to be Ohio State. I mean, I was watching on the Big Ten Network when before the season they do the Big Ten road trip where they go to each team and they go to the practices and things like that. And even the guys there said that nothing changed. With Urban Meyer not being there, nothing changed for Ohio State.
And conversely, with Wisconsin, I don't know if you saw what DiNardo was saying after he came to Nebraska. He was comparing things that he'd seen at Wisconsin and Nebraska and Iowa. It was after he went to Iowa and Iowa, and he was saying that. And then I think a lot of people have been echoing this, that the West is more wide open than it's been in a while. He would say Wisconsin just didn't feel like they felt in the past few years. And over the last couple of weeks, I've heard about a lot of they've lost their kicker. They lost I forget the name of their number 1 wide receiver has now left the team because he's being charged for sexual assault. They've lost a few other key players on their team. I mean, you always kind of trust their defense because they're that kind of team. But then the Big Ten, the bus tour you're talking about. They go to Nebraska, they go to Iowa, they go to Northwestern, and they're seeing cohesive teams that are ready and hungry to take over. So I think that we're going to see a new champion or a new contender coming out of the West this year. So yeah, I think the rating for Wisconsin is a little too high. I think that they're using a little too much from last year and not considering how.
I don't know about that because
number 4. I don't think they're number 4 in the country.
They are returning that big bad offensive line that they had last year. Most of their starters there. Jonathan Touchdown Taylor's back.
Yeah, I think it's true. They're going to have a good run game, but I don't trust Hornibrook. And they've lost a lot of other key pieces. And I just think that other teams in the West are like I said, they're hungry to come after them.
I would agree that I think the West is
Wisconsin's pretty tough schedule. So does Nebraska. I think Nebraska's got the toughest schedule, either them or Michigan in the Big Ten. But
yeah, especially because you're playing. I think Michigan State's at home, but you're playing 3 of the 4 best teams in the Big Ten East, and
Nebraska is,
and
Michigan
I want to say
it's a home game.
2 of the 3 is on the road. You're playing at the Big House, at the Horseshoe,
at Wisconsin, at Iowa. It's a tough year. This is a tough year for Nebraska. Here, listen to Michigan's schedule. It's pretty tough too. They play Notre Dame this year. They start the season at Notre Dame. At Western Michigan, which I know FCS team, but still
Western Michigan's MAC team.
Oh yeah, you're right. MAC team, but a formidable opponent when it comes to, and similar to how Troy might not be a Power 5 team, but they're 11-2 last year, including the bowl game, won their conference and beat LSU at LSU.
On the road, yeah.
So we got to be ready for that. So then Michigan gets Southern Methodist. They get Nebraska. They go to Northwestern, Maryland. That should be cakewalk. Then their other crossover, Wisconsin. And then they're at Michigan State, at Ohio State. They get Penn State, obviously, at home. And that's a pretty rough schedule right there.
Yeah, I think that
I don't know. I think Nebraska is harder, though. Honestly, I think Troy over Western Michigan kind of puts them over.
I would say Nebraska has probably the tougher schedule just because.
I'm glad we don't play Penn State this year.
Oh man. Well, that brings up a good point. I agree in a sense that I think there are challenges to Wisconsin, legitimate challenges, but I don't think it's going to be Nebraska this year. As much as I think Scott Frost will be successful, I still want to temper my expectations because I don't want to just come out and say he's going to win, 10 games, 11 games, because I just don't think that's realistic. I think
I think the floor is 6 wins and the ceiling is probably 9.
I honestly, I was looking over the schedule and giving a realistic take. I think I counted, I want to say 4 losses. So I would say I could see it being 8-4 or 7-5. I could see that, which some people, and I know that's just how Nebraska fans are, that's still not enough, even though he's supposed to be the savior. What happened? I'm like, he inherited a bad team. Okay. This is a team that was 4-8 a year before.
Yeah.
A lot of holes.
I'll say, I think that there's a lot of reason for optimism. I think that if the schedule isn't so tight, like if we had last year's schedule, which was a lot easier than this year's, I could see him winning 9 or 10 games. But this year, I think it's just going to be too tough. I will say that Mike Riley and staff, they did do a good job recruiting some positions. I mean, we have some talented players in this team.
Yeah, they would just coach well.
Yeah, and they got hurt a lot, probably because it had to do with coaching and strength and conditioning and everything. I think it all comes back to that. But I think there was a lot of talent, and I think 53 new players have been brought in over the offseason. And from all reports, it sounds like they're all fitting in very well. I'm super excited for this offense. I think everything that you hear about Maurice Washington, that he's just a stud. Scott Frost himself said after 5 days of camp that he had 12 incredible plays, and that's high praise coming from Scott if you ever listened to him talk. I mean, hearing that Trey Bryant's going to be healthy, a lot of people thought he was never going to play football again. Hearing that Ozigbo has lost a few pounds and is really wowing the coaches right now, I love hearing that. Mm-hmm. And then obviously the receivers were just loaded, and I'm really excited about the quarterbacks. I think that we're going to hear tomorrow, Friday, who the starter is going to be. And honestly, I'm pretty confident either way that they're going to be good. But yeah, I agree that it'll probably be another year before we're really where we want to be. But I like Stanley Morgan's attitude, man. He says, I'm here to win championships.
But yeah, I mean, the lineman, he said, I know people might think it's unrealistic, but I don't care, think I'm crazy. I want to win a national championship. That's what I'm here for. We're going to win, we're going to play for that. And I
like that.
And I want players to believe that. I want guys like that who realistically it might not happen, but to have that mentality is important. It's like what I tell you all the time, and you agree. It's like, if you don't think your team can win a championship every year, then are you really a fan? If you don't believe,
I mean, there's, and it's maybe more of like a want and a hope than a true belief, and I think Scott Frost and the coaches have done a great job at balancing, making their team believe, but also tempering the fans and the media, saying well, next year is really our year, and you better get us now if you're going to get us, because you're not going to be able to. But then also saying that you're here to win right away. You never go out and say, you never go to a game not planning to win. Tell me to shut up.
No, my Facebook keeps going off. But
yeah, so I love the attitude. I hate when people are like, "Oh, be realistic." I'm like, no, when you're a football player, you're a competitor. Any sports player, you're there to compete to win. You're not there to compete to win 6 games or win 8 games. You're there to win all of them, and you're going to try as hard as you can to win every single one. Now, I think that there's a difference between expecting to win and think you can win. If you win 8 games, you should still feel accomplished. And, if you're a Husker this year, you'd be proud of that, but that's not the goal. The goal is to win 15 games. That's the goal.
No, yeah. And
every year for every team.
And as a player, you for sure should want that. And I don't believe in the whole idea of be realistic too. I think why would you not want to shoot for the stars? That's just silly to not.
You just never know. I mean, winning a national championship, likely out of the question, because teams that win national championships are generally ranked very highly to start the season and generally have top 10 recruiting classes the 4 to 5 years preceding that. However, this team could still surprise everyone and make it to the playoffs. It's totally possible. We're in the slightly easier division. If we can win the West Division, then you're 1 game away from essentially going to the playoff. Most likely, you win the Big Ten championship. odds are you're going to go into the playoffs. So like that's completely possible, and I don't think there's any reason to shoot for less.
Okay, so real quick,
I'm super excited. I want to ask you. Okay, you go first.
Okay, so real quick, let's just hear what you think because I think we're on the same page. I want to go through the schedule and tell you wins and losses. So first game, Akron, win. Colorado, win. Troy, win. So I think we're gonna start off 3-0.
Yeah, obviously.
I think Michigan's gonna beat Nebraska here.
I think here's how I see it. So I'm just gonna list out the wins that I see first. So let's just get those out of the way and get to the other games. So Akron, Colorado, Troy, Minnesota, Illinois. Those are the ones that like I'm very, very confident that we're gonna win. Now, I'd say there's varying degrees on the other ones. Michigan, I'd give us like just a little bit less than a toss-up. I think Michigan's a little bit overrated. I think that yes, their defense is fantastic, but I see Nebraska for any good this year. It's going to be because our offense is just on fire, and I can totally see that happening with all the weapons that we have, all the speed that we have, and the fact that nobody else in the Big Ten really has that. I mean, Ohio State is very good on offense, but they're not the same kind of like super fast tempo. Super. I mean, they do have super athletes, but I don't think that their defense. I think there's a good chance that Nebraska's offense could overwhelm their defense, and that that Michigan's offense wouldn't be able to keep up. So I'd say that's a little bit less than a toss-up. As far as Purdue, Northwestern, and Iowa, I mean, Iowa's at the end of the season. You don't know what you're going to get out of Iowa until later on. I think the opposite of those ones where it's a toss-up, but more to our favor. Purdue the most out of them, but we'll see. I mean, Jeff Brom, the turnover that he had last year was awesome. So, and then Ohio State is the one where, I'm a little nervous for that. I'm excited to go to the game, but I'm not super confident in that. Oh, and I see Michigan State the same way I see Michigan. That it's a toss-up, but it's more in our in their favor. But I could definitely. That's towards the end of the season. We'll see how injuries play out, how good or bad we actually are. I mean, we have no idea what we're going to get. But that's how I see the season. I think. Is there anything you agree with there?
I pretty much agree with that, except for I think Purdue. I think Purdue is a guaranteed win. I don't.
Okay. Man, last year. I mean, I know.
But of the four losses, the losses that I see are Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, and then I had one other one. It's not Iowa. It was Wisconsin. Yeah, it was Wisconsin. Those are the four losses I see. So 8-4, not a bad start. I mean, flipping it and going from 4-8 to 8-4, not a bad start, and it can only get better.
And if I'm going to make my outright prediction for the season, that's tough. Like some of these are I could just see it going either way so easily. I'm going to give us a 9-3. I'm going to say our three losses are going to be Ohio State, obviously, Wisconsin, and Michigan. I think we're going to lose Michigan. I think it'll be a good game though. But I think that we take Michigan State at home, and I think that we'll take mostly because that's my birthday weekend, and I don't want to imagine us losing. And I think we're going to stick it to Iowa because I think that the players, especially the seniors on this team, they're going to be done with that. And
Iowa's been taking it to Nebraska.
I think Iowa better be ready, and I plan on going to that game. We should definitely go to that together.
You know what? As much as it's still a long drive for me. Like it's not nearly as bad, but
oh my God, shut up! It's a holiday. We're doing it. We're doing it.
Well, I was just saying, like, it's so much easier to go to an Iowa State game because Ames is like 45 minutes to an hour from where I live, and Iowa City is way. I don't want to go to Iowa City. It's gross.
Right, well, I'll be there having a great time watching the Huskers pound on the dirty Hawkeyes.
I'm going to tell you this though. I think, regardless of how the season ends up, I think if Nebraska beats Wisconsin, then to me that'll be the sign that Scott Frost has arrived. Because if Nebraska can beat the top dog in the division with I don't want to say much less talented squad. That's not necessarily fair. But this is a team that's
we have more talent. We have way more talent than Wisconsin. They've just been coached up so well. If we're talking about talent, then you're talking about their recruiting rankings.
Okay,
Nebraska is way ahead of Wisconsin.
I'll agree with you. Wisconsin's like New England. It's the system.
Yeah, and they do have a great system. I agree. I agree with you. The weird thing about that, though, is that if you look at the last 2 years, like, yeah, they beat us pretty good by the end of the game last year. We were beating them. And if we could have just stopped one run in the last 20 whatever attempts.
That's the most annoying thing.
The year before that, we take them to overtime at Wisconsin. I mean, and the year before that, they beat us by a field goal in the last second. So it's kind of crazy. And so that's what it makes me more confident in that game. But we'll see.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I just think that like that, regardless of what happens, if he can beat Michigan or Wisconsin, I think that's going to really set the tone. Because right now everybody's kind of feeling it out, like, oh, they got this great young coach. We'll see how it goes. But if they can pull off a win against Wisconsin at Camp Randall Stadium, I think that's when the Big Ten is going to kind of sit up and take notice and be like, okay, Nebraska's serious again.
I got a question for you. Which of these scenarios would you rather see? Nebraska beats Michigan, Wisconsin, and Ohio State those are all away games for Nebraska. They win all three of those games, but they lose to Purdue, Northwestern, and Iowa. Or would you rather see them clean up all the games that they should win and only win one of those three away games?
I would take them cleaning up and then winning one of those games, because to me it'd be.
But man, could you imagine?
Like option A would be like, if they win those games, that's a legitimate playoff contender. But then we
lose to Purdue. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's tough. I think option A. The more I think about it now, actually, I think if that happens, then everyone's just going to write off the Big Ten, and we're not going to make the playoff. Is what would happen.
That's what I'm saying. Is like that is a legitimate case for a playoff.
I will say,
spot.
If we can pull off a win at Michigan in the first Big Ten game, I think that would be such a huge morale boost and confidence boost for this team that I think that if we win that game, I would say we're more likely to win 10 games than we would be to win 7 or 8. Just because they have so much confidence, and then going into Purdue and Wisconsin, that'd be huge. So I really hope it happens.
And it would be, and that's the thing too. It's a perfect storm for Nebraska because the fan base is excited, the players are excited, and then having that happen first year and a guy that everybody believes in, and we'll see what happens this year, but I honestly think that Nebraska is in a great spot because I feel like Scott Frost is the Urban Meyer.
The future is bright. No, don't compare him to Urban Meyer right now.
Is it? Well, except for if he sees someone beating someone, he'll probably say
he's the new Nick Saban. He's the new T.O. That's what he is. The new Tom Osborne.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll see what happens.
I put $25 on some bets that I think I did $10 that they're going to win the national championship, $10 that they're going to win the Big Ten West, and $5 that they'll win the Big Ten.
Derek,
I think that's how I did it.
Problem.
It's $25. If I get all those, though, I get like $2,000. So worth it.
So Derek's gambling problems. That's how we should end this show, right there.
Perfect. I'm excited to do this show, man. I miss talking about sports.
I'm excited too. So once again, you can get this live. You can get that on loudandopinionated.com. I believe it's going to have its own tab. Am I right, Derek?
Yeah, it will soon. It'll be loudandopinionated.com/the Audible. And this has been the Audible presented by Loud and Opinionated.
Yeah,
is that how we're going to say it? We'll figure it. Semantics. We'll get there.
We'll figure it out. It might have its own RSS feed at some point. We'll figure it out. But yes, thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. as always, you can contact us. I'm Jake at loudandopinionated.com. Derek is Derek at loudandopinionated.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Loud Opinionated, no and because it's too long. You can like us on Facebook, Loud and Opinionated. And thanks. Have a great day.
Scofro for life.
Jimmy G string.
That was fun. Well, that was a good time.
That was hard to condense to 30 some minutes.
I know. Yeah. Well, so moving forward, not